Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Birding with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Services mostly weekly cup chat program. Joining us today is special guest Haeley, and I hate to say, Haeley, I'm going to let you introduce your last name. That way I don't butcher it. Everyone on the show knows that I can butcher some words. So Haeley, I'll let you tell everybody what your last name is, and then we'll go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into your native backyard blog and challenge.
Awesome. Okay. So my name is Haeley Giambalvo. That's definitely a mouthful. And I'm located here in San Antonio, Texas. In a nutshell, I am a Texas master naturalist. I'm an amateur backyard birder and a native plant enthusiast. And I volunteer at a number of native plant demonstration gardens here around San Antonio to help maintain them. And that's how I've learned a lot about growing natives in the last year. Professionally, I have a background in marketing strategy, and I've been blogging for the last decade in the home and garden space. I have a home decor and crafting website called Design Improvise that I've done for a number of years, kind of on a full-time basis. And I decided to start Native Backyards last November as a second website because I thought, I could apply my blogging skills, my social media background to help get the word out to other native plant newbies like myself that maybe have never heard of the concept of native plants. And I wanted to provide information in an easy to understand, not intimidating way so people could learn about, what are natives, why are they important to grow, and how can we start adding them to our backyard.
Well, and I really love, I went on your blog the other day, and I really love your idea of this challenge. And we're going to get to that in a little bit, but I think that that's really a really neat thing in terms of how we, you have the sit-up challenge, which I have never fully completed. Have you done the 30-day sit-up challenge, Dr. Frank?
No, I have tried to do the 30-day yoga challenge, like Yoga with Adrian on YouTube, and I've never made it through 30 days of that either. But I've got like halfway, and I'm intending to start it again soon, but no, I'm not good at those.
I have challenged myself not to go to Starbucks as much.
Nice. Oh, that's a tough one.
It's a very tough one, especially for me. And I will say that I'm on day 7 of my challenge. I am still using Starbucks caramel macchiato creamer in my coffee this morning, but just thought everybody should know that I am on my own personal challenge today. Awesome. Even though we haven't done even though we're not quite to the native backyard check. So reading your blog a little bit, Haeley, you have, your yard is not completely natives yet. You're really more of kind of like a work in progress. So, and I think that's a great thing to start on because if you asked me to redo my lawn today with native plants, I'd say, okay, where would you like me to fund that project with?
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's overwhelming. I mean, especially people who have full-time jobs and just garden as a hobby, going out there and working 24/7 to get it completely the way you want it is maybe not ideal. So tell us a little bit how you started and what advice you'd give to someone as they want to start making that transition from their current yard to more of a native, yard.
Okay, so just like a little bit of a background. So I've been a long time, backyard flower gardener, growing flowers in container pots, and have always enjoyed that. But, my criteria for what I picked for my backyard was primarily what looked pretty at the nursery and what I thought I could keep alive. So a lot of, I think when we talk about transitioning to natives is just starting to ask questions about what do you currently have in your yard and what purpose does it serve? What is it doing? Not just in terms of beauty and whether you like the plant or not, but is it helping support pollinators? Is it providing food for birds and wildlife? And what actually do you have growing? So, my backyard is shown here in the photo. We moved into our home about 8 years ago, and there was some landscaping already put in from the previous owners. Probably for the first 6 years, I didn't actually know what the majority of plants were in our yard. I never really thought to figure it out. There was some shrubs and some perennials, and we do have some beautiful live oak trees. I knew what those were. But only, in the last couple of years, once I became a Texas Master Naturalist and joined the Native Plant Society here in San Antonio, did I start kind of getting more curious about, okay, what do I have in my yard? And realized that, actually majority of my yard was non-native plants, which is kind of the case for, I think, a lot of people in typical suburban areas that have a grassy, turf grass yard and maybe some shrubs and trees. When you start to actually see what you have, you might find that probably 70% or more is non-native, which isn't necessarily a horrible thing. I don't want to say that all non-native plants are bad. It's just something to be aware of and to know, oh, that's interesting. Like, I didn't realize that most of these plants in my yard are actually from different continents, from Asia and Africa and South America. So I think just starting to ask those questions is the first step and kind of where I started. For me, I spent a lot of time in my backyard. You can see there's a fountain here that I don't use it as a fountain. I just refill the top area every day as a bird bath. So I do get a lot of birds around there. And up until last summer, that area was covered with some Nandina shrubs. Nandina is a popular plant here in Texas. A lot of people have it in their landscaping. It's evergreen and it produces red berries that I always thought were pretty in the winter. But the more I learned about it, I realized that, maybe it's not the best shrub to have in my yard. It's actually an invasive species here in Texas. It can escape your yard if birds eat the berries and deposit them elsewhere. It can enter in some of our natural areas. And there's also been some isolated incidents, some reporting of birds actually dying from eating those berries because they contain cyanide. So there's not a ton of research on that, but I thought, well, that's a great area for me to start. I have a bird bath. I love watching birds. I don't want to surround it with Nandina if there's a better option that, would be both better for the birds and better for the environment. So last summer, I hired a landscaper to help me remove all of them. There was a bunch and they had really filled in the whole area, kind of as like a semicircle around my fountain. And that left me with a blank space to start to incorporate natives here and there, just to experiment. So I can kind of show you kind of what's in there now is a mix of native perennials and ground covers and some non-natives that I kept in there. Liriope is a kind of like an evergreen grass. I put in some coleus, which is just an annual plant with a lot of colorful foliage that I just like because it adds some pops of color to the garden. It's not native, but it's really pretty, and I like to incorporate that with some of my native plants. So this has been my experimental zone, kind of adding a little bit here and there as I've learned about plants. And one great thing being a volunteer at some of the native plant gardens is if we're digging up plants that have grown beyond where they're supposed to be, we can take some home with us. So I've kind of added over time to my space, got some from friends, and then I've done some other things in my yard since then, which I'm happy to talk about, kind of the phases. So it's happened over the course of the last year, little by little, because you're right, it's a lot of expense and it's a lot of work to do it all at once. So I started with the main area around the fountain, but then if you look at the pathway that extends behind my fountain, that was a project that I took on earlier this summer. I actually removed 200 square feet of grass that was back there, and I just extended the bed to double it in size. And that was a big undertaking, but so worth it because that area of our yard got a lot of direct sun. It was really hard to keep looking green in the summertime, needed a lot of water. And it was a perfect opportunity to put in native plants because they tend to be really drought tolerant. They love full sun. A lot of them don't need a lot of maintenance. So we took advantage of a program that's offered here in San Antonio that I want everyone in the area to know about because it's so great. It's through our San Antonio water system called Water Saver Rewards, and they will provide rebates for anyone that wants to take out at least 200 square foot of their lawn and shut off any sprinkler heads in those areas if they have an in-ground sprinkler system, and they will refund you money for doing that. So we had several $100s refunded back to us, so we could put that towards plants for the area. So super great project, and saves us money on our water bill, but also gives me opportunity to play with some more native plants in my yard.
That's a neat program. I never heard about that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Haeley. And maybe if I never even heard of a program like that. Had you, Maureen?
Yeah, I have actually, and I didn't know about that one. I think that's like you pointed out, that's a great way to get started, and then you've got the money to do something different. I also really like the idea of starting with that problem area. So you like you had that area of direct sun. It wasn't a fantastic place for grass anyhow, and so it was a good time to do something else. So Emily knows this has been a years-long project at our house, but we've got a little corner where our house and our porch comes together that just doesn't drain well, and so it would catch water, and the grass would actually grow fine because there was so much water, but it was kind of an awkward shape, so it was hard to mow. And so we've torn out all that grass, and we've had to do a lot of like drainage, not fun piping work. And when I say we, I mean not me. My husband has done a lot of drainage piping work, but once we fill that in, we're going to put native plants there. And so that was kind of our starting point. And I think that's a great idea, especially because we have native plants that are adapted to all different kinds of conditions. And so if you've got a trouble spot in your yard, whether it's too dry or too wet or too sunny or too shady, there's a native plant that you can put there, and maybe that's your little corner that you start in. So I like that.
Absolutely.
And I hate to poke fun, but one of my favorite things at your house, Maureen, is your lantana bed.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you think of something and you talk about gardening, and Maureen, I'm sure, would love to have a very nice yard and garden area where she walked out there and worked all the time, but she doesn't have the time. And her lantana garden, it's a big bed, just completely full of lantana, and it's beautiful. And so I think sometimes we forget that at the end of the day, sometimes native plants can give us that easy garden and just fill it with lantana and watch it grow and don't do anything with it, and you don't have to worry about it. And that's just it. And it looks phenomenal.
One thing that I like about natives, like the lantana, is that they're perennials. So you go to the nursery, you buy them one time, and then they keep providing beauty year after year. Where my previous kind of method of gardening for my container pots, that I'd go to the nursery, I'd buy some annuals. They might last till about July and then die in the heat of the summer. And then, maybe I buy some more for fall, and I buy another round in the spring, and it gets really expensive, and you're just kind of using these disposable plants. So now in my pots around my patio, anytime I have a plant that dies, I will try to add a native in there instead. There are some natives that do work well in patio pots if you've got large ones. So that's a great place to start too, even if you don't have a yard. Just I can recommend some native plants. There's, especially ones that pollinators like. That's a fun way to bring some butterflies into your yard.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one of the awesome things about our lantanas is the butterflies come all over them, and we trim the dead ones once a year, and that is all I do to them. No, we do nothing else. And lantana.
Let's ask. Hey, I mean, Maureen, you may be an expert in how to, but like, I know we're going to talk about maintenance here in a little bit, but like on lantana, do you just cut it back once a year? I mean, do you even actually have to do anything to it? Like, I'm not a plant person. That's why we don't ask me to do the plant cup chats, Haeley. But do you even have to? Would you even have to cut those back? Is there any advice on pruning a lantana?
Well, I think a lot of the, what's that?
That could be my problem too, as to why my plants.
I think, because a lot of natives, because they like our climate, they're used to growing here, they can get really big if you just let them go, which is a good thing. But they also respond really well to kind of an annual, I call it a haircut, but they really do like to be, a lot of them cut back almost to the ground at the end of winter, and then they just come up again looking better than ever, rather than having all that old growth there and then having in the spring the new growth come around it. I think a lot of them benefit from being cut back. Each of them is a little different. The Native Plant Society in Texas has really good info sheets on their website for every region of Texas in terms of what the natives are and kind of how to maintain them. I believe is some of the information on there as well. But I'd say, some of them, we've kind of already passed the point, but kind of in August, late summer, a lot of them benefit from like being cut back by a third to a half, just so they can have another round of blooms in the fall. So I have some salvia that I did that too, and it's already, I cut it back by half, and now it's already formed buds and it's blooming again. Before that, it was really big from all the summer growth and it was almost falling over. So really cutting that back halfway, like really helped revive it for another several months. I think it'll keep looking good. But once you hit fall. Right now we've got all the hummingbirds starting to migrate through, the pollinators. I wouldn't do a whole lot of cutting back of your lantanas or anything that's blooming right now, because they're providing important nectar and for pollinators. And I would keep them. I think a rule of thumb is to try to keep a lot of your perennial, even if they've died, up through the winter, because that provides habitat and seed heads and things for birds over the winter. And try to wait till February to cut them back to the ground, or at least by half.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
sorry,
usually do
I skipped ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say we usually do our lantana like at the end of March. And the first year we just kind of got lucky, and happened to do it at the right time. But part of the nice thing too is you get that dead growth out, and then you can see that green at the ground, so like it's coming. And it's coming back. But I think an important thing for everybody to remember, like you're saying with the salvia, you take some of it back, is that of our native plants, and I don't remember if this is on the Native Plant Society as well, or if there's various resources for this, but there are some plants that deer love, and there are some plants that deer like, and there are some plants that deer avoid. The plants that deer love are adapted to sustain some amount of being eaten. So sometimes cutting those plants back a little bit, because if we think about these plants, outside of our gardens, growing in nature, something was going to eat them probably. And so that's part of why they're adapted to do fine. If they get cut back a little bit, they're going to come back. But if, depending on where you are, they're not adapted to the populations densities of deer that we have now, because there's parts of the state, especially like in the hill country, that have higher densities of deer than is supposed to be, than is natural. And so that can be a problem. But in those cases, you can find some of those species that are resistant to deer. There's no such thing as deer proof, but some of those that are resistant, and you'll get less damage on those. So that's another good thing to kind of look for with your natives. And what are those resources for birds, if you want those available? Haeley, I don't know what kind of your favorite go-to site is for looking those up, but Audubon, if you go on Audubon's website, they have a tool that you can type in your zip code, and they'll tell you not just what native plants there are, but like what resources there are. So if you go, hummingbirds are my favorite, which things have nectar, you can like filter your search by that and get things that will produce nectar. So, and I'll put that link in the
yeah, that's a great one. The two that I also use a lot are wildflower.org, which is the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. They have an awesome native plant database that you can search by common name or scientific name, and then you'll get all the information on the plant. And I know whether it's deer resistant or not is one of the things that they list for each of the plants. That's super helpful. And they'll tell you if it's a host plant for any butterflies and moths. Another one, I think it's still new and in beta, but it's the National Wildlife Federation. They have a native plant finder as well. And the cool thing about that is that they prioritize the results. So you enter in your zip code, and then it gives you some results of plants prioritized by the number of butterflies and moth species they support as host plants, which is that's one of the most critical things about native plants, is that they're really important host plants for butterflies that require specific plants to lay their eggs on. So that's a good way. If you want to prioritize those plants, check out that database, and it kind of help you prioritize what to plant first.
Well, and thankfully we've got Mary Pearl on this morning, and she's already put the link in the comments to the Native Plant Finder with the National Wildlife Federation. So appreciate your support back home, Mary Pearl.
Well, and I was going to say, it's been a while. I just feel like it's been a while since I've been on Cup Chat. I guess it hasn't been that long, but I feel like it's been a while since we've done like our free 30-second commercials. And this is not the one I was going to do today, but being part of Master Naturalist, Haeley mentioned she's a Master Naturalist. And I think this is my 30-second commercial for being a Master Naturalist, because I think some of what I've learned about native plants since I started working here has come through the Master Naturalist Conference. And then also some of those tools like that Haeley's talking about, if you want to, learn about using some of those tools or more information about native plants, or there was something that I was thinking of that I just saw the other day. I don't know, a lot of those different resources I get through being part of the Master Naturalist listserv. And for me, that's because it's part of my job. But I mean, anybody who wants to join and become a Master Naturalist has that available to them. So that's that's total detour.
Oh, I definitely want to put a plug in for the Master Naturalist as well. I'm a relatively new one. I graduated in one of the most recent classes in 2020. and really went into it not knowing what to expect, but I just learned so much about Texas ecology. That's where I discovered what native plants were, kind of fell in love with learning about plants. And I really got into it because, like I said before, I really enjoy watching birds in my backyard and, learning about those, and wanted to take the Master Naturalist program to expand my knowledge beyond the basic birds I saw in my backyard to, like, how can I help conserve them? I think that the statistic that I saw before I enrolled, which really kind of motivated me to join, was that we've lost almost 30% of our bird population since the 70s. And I was like, wow, that's really heartbreaking. I was born in 1979, and to think that we've lost that many in my lifetime is something that kind of motivated me to try to help in some way. So I think I would, the Master Naturalist program was incredible. I'm still very involved as a volunteer, and I'm our director of social media. So if you want to join the Alamo Area Master Naturalist Facebook page, there's lots of great information on there, as you were saying, in terms of classes and also on all different topics of Texas ecology that's open to the public and typically free. So definitely people should look into the Master Naturalist program.
That's super cool. Well, and that is what I was going to say, is that Mary Pearl Mueller.
Wait. I did not look how it's spelled.
That's why I never ever say any names. So Mary Pearl, the lady who's commenting on Facebook, as y'all see it come up, she's not some crazy random lady. She's actually one arm of the coordinator. She's one of the coordinators for the Texas Master Naturalist who joins us. So she's not some crazy lady who's just posting a whole lot of comments. We do love her and love that she joins us most mornings for a cup chat. But let's move on. We are getting close to our 30-minute time period, and we have quite a bit more to cover.
Yeah, I have a really important question is that today kicks off your native plant challenge. And so I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit more about this.
Awesome.
Can somebody still participate? Can you sign up today?
Absolutely. Yes, you can still sign up today, and you can really sign up throughout the next month. I would sign up sooner rather than later so you can enjoy the whole challenge. But it's just something fun that I created to get people interested in native plants and to start adding them to their yard. So what it is, it's a 4-week email challenge. Each week I email you a little mini challenge to help you get to know what you currently have growing in your yard, find opportunities to swap in a native plant, and learn about what plants are native to your specific area and where you might be able to find them at a nursery near you. So that's the gist of it. The ultimate goal is for each participant to add at least 2 new native plants to their yard to complete the challenge. So it's a pretty easy challenge to conquer. Unlike some of those 30-day challenges you guys were talking about earlier, this one is totally meant to be fun and self-paced. You can do as much or a little of it as you want. But I just thought it'd be a fun way to get people out in their backyards or front yards and thinking about how they could add some more natives.
And I love this because it's only 4 challenges, right?
Yes, and they're simple. It's like, let's look at what we have growing, maybe identify some plants that you aren't sure of with an app. I use iNaturalist, which I love, so I help people learn how to use that. Because I have people joining from all over the country, not just here in San Antonio or Texas, I don't talk about specific native plants, but I help direct people to some of those resources we talked about earlier, like wildflower.org and the National Wildlife Federation, so they can start to research some good plants in their area.
No, so, and I think that's so cool. And I would say I would join, but I'm about to leave and just have moved. And so my house is I'm not quite ready to dive into a native plant challenge right now, especially because I'm container gardening. So not quite ready, but I'm going to challenge Maureen to join the challenge.
All right.
Okay. I was just making a note, and I am going to join the challenge because we are working on stuff with our yard, and I think that's fun. Also, though, I have to say, this is just a general extension plug. The most recent challenge, I have completed challenges before, and the ones that I like to do is the Walk Across Texas Challenge. So this is a complete side note, but Extension we're starting it today, actually. Also, today starts the Walk Across Texas Challenge. So if you want to plant natives and get some exercise, it's a cool thing to do. But no, I accept your challenge, Emily. Awesome. I will join the native plant challenge.
Yay. And I will join the next one, Haeley, I promise. Because I love the idea of 4 easy challenges. And that's something really obtainable for everybody. And I love the idea.
Thank you.
But speaking of which, talking about gardening and then tying in Walk Across Texas, I will tag, I'll put a link to the Walk Across Texas page. But do you know if when I first got my Fitbit, I think when Maureen was my best friend who gave me a Fitbit. When I first got my Fitbit, one of the few things that you can do easily and accomplish things to get your steps up, gardening and cleaning house. And so when I hadn't met my step requirements, I cleaned house or the week, because I usually work till it's dark. But so I would clean house because there were lights inside. But on the weekends, if I needed extra steps, I would go outside and work in the yard. So it goes fold and fold.
So it ties together. We tie together our challenges. And hey, we have a spot on our Walk Across Texas team still, Emily.
Oh.
So now I'm going to challenge you to walk across Texas with us.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I will walk across Texas. You do the native plant challenge for me, and then we'll jump back and do the native. I'll jump back into the native plant challenge in a couple of on the next
well
round.
And this, Haeley, is this the first year for the native plant challenge? Is this going to be an annual thing or a
Yes, so I did the first one in May, so kind of during the spring planting time frame. I think I would like to repeat it each May and fall. Fall is actually a great time to plant perennial native, so that's why I thought I would do it again. And I've gotten a really good response so far. We have 600 people signed up, so
that's
a lot of native plants if we all complete the challenge.
Wonderful. Well, that's so cool. And so we do have a question for from Mary Pearl on Cup Chat. That's kind of off topic. So I'm going to ask it with one of our other, with another question. What are maybe 3 or 4 key plants that you want that are like your go-to plants to bring birds into your yard? And then the second fold of that is, where is a great source? Where are you sourcing your native plants? Mary Pearl, that says that's kind of her biggest barrier is local nurseries don't always have the local eco-type natives. So what's your suggestion on sourcing those plants? Are we going to learn more about that in the challenge? And then maybe what are some of your go-to native plants for your yard?
Okay, so quickly, the plants, so in terms of hummingbird plants, because I do have a lot of hummingbirds that come to my yard, some great nectar plants for them are Turk's Cap and Flamacanthus. I love those 2 native plants. Turk's Cap also is a great, just for other birds, it produces a little fruit that birds like as well, so that can attract different birds. In terms of offering like berries and seeds, I love American Beautyberry is a great berry plant that birds like to feast on the berries, and that one is just beautiful this time of year. It's got deep purple berries that cover the stems. Another one is chili pekin. So it's a chili pepper plant that both birds and humans can eat. They're tiny little red peppers, and it's a fun way to add color to your garden in the fall without having to have blooms.
Hot peppers, people.
Yes, very hot. I've heard. I actually haven't tried one.
I guess birds, because at the random tangent. Sorry, Haeley.
That's okay.
That's why Cup Chat has no rules. That's why that's funny that you say birds eat them, but that must be what they use in like when they make the wild seed farm hot stuff.
Yes.
Because the squirrels don't like them.
Yes, that's right.
They must not be able to taste the spicy
Yeah,
food.
they can't.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. And then one more that I really like is inland sea oats. Those have really pretty seed heads that you can keep up all winter that birds can eat. And all 3 of those plants, so American Beautyberry, inland sea oats, chili pekin, actually, and Turk's Cap as well, they perform really well in shade or part shade. And so I know a lot of people have shady areas of their yards. It can be hard to find something to grow there. So all those are really good plants for those areas and will bring birds to your yard. So highly recommend those.
Awesome. And where would you find those good native plants?
Well, I would first look to your local native plant society here in Texas. A lot of them are having their fall plant sales right now. So like now is a great time to look for those and take advantage of those, because you will find its members have some unique natives that you can't really find at nurseries. So that's a great opportunity to take advantage of those. And then here in San Antonio, I've been able to find a couple of nurseries that are pretty darn knowledgeable about native plants and have a good selection. So it just takes a little bit of hunting around. And I think it's a growing trend. I think more and more nurseries are kind of getting on board with natives. But if you can find one locally that does carry a lot, here in San Antonio, I like one called Rainbow Gardens. There's 2 locations in town. They have a nice selection and they have really good signage. So you do know, you'll see what the scientific name is of the plant. And that's really helpful to make sure you actually are getting the true native species you're looking for, because if you're just looking by common names, many plants might share the same common name, or it's not as clear that you're actually getting what you think you are. So they have great signs to help you know what you're getting, and they have pretty knowledgeable staff as well. So do a little research, ask around, maybe, and definitely start with your Native Plant Society to find some good sources near you. It is a little bit of like a hunting expedition to try to find. And I think one tip I would give for people that are wanting to add natives is don't try to like design your dream garden with like your wish list of native plants and then go looking for them, because a lot of times you are limited by what the selection at the nursery. So maybe start there, kind of see what they have, and plan around that. Might be a good way to start. So
I have
add over time.
No, there's no rules, Haeley. Unless you have to go, there are no rules.
No.
So I have a question kind of about this though, because you mentioned not necessarily finding the things that you want. Because I have, for our little area that's still, well, I would say it's a patch of dirt, but we got a lot of rain this year, so it's a patch of weeds now. And I know what I want to put in there, and for the most part, I know which like natives that are fairly common to find. So I think I have a good idea of what I'm going to put over there. But this just occurred to me. I don't know if there's a resource for this, or maybe this can be your next big website project. But if somebody has something that they love that's a non-native species, is there some sort of resource that can recommend, like, hey, you love Nandina, here's some similar natives? Like, or hey, you love this, where's the similar, some options that you could fill?
I love that idea. I don't know of a specific source that does that, but it would be really helpful if we had something like that. So I'll have to consider that for some of my future posts on native backyards, for sure.
Yes, I love that.
And even just, or like, if you love this native, but it's hard to find in nurseries, what's something similar that you might find instead? Oh, and I remembered when I started talking about the Master Naturalist and my free commercial, one of the plugs that I was going to give as far as sourcing plants is about milkweeds. And I learned about this through the Master Naturalist listserv is why. But almost every year, there's places that you can get free milkweeds, and sometimes through like a chapter, like buying a flat of milkweeds. And it's through, Haeley, maybe you remember, I don't remember the name of it, but it's the group that is doing it will only sell you the milkweeds that are for your area, because there's lots of milkweeds you can buy for your garden. And sometimes we just think milkweeds and you're like, oh, they're native here, but they're not necessarily the best ones.
Right.
And so the ones that are native for your area is the only one that you can get, that you can order, but you can order a big flat. And so I know sometimes the Master Naturalist chapter will order it, and then you can buy the individual plants if nobody wants a flat of milkweed. But that's another source that you can get them from.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say milkweed is one of those plants that I am still trying to locate myself. Like, I haven't actually had very much luck finding milkweed, and I've tried to grow it from seed. I had some antelope horn milkweed seed, which is a really cool type of milkweed, and I haven't had any luck growing it from seed. And then butterfly weed as well, I believe, is another one I tried to grow. So I'm still learning, and I haven't been able to really find it in any nurseries. You will see tropical milkweed, which is one that a lot of Master Naturalists and Native Plant Society folks would probably tell you to maybe avoid, because it doesn't function quite like a native milkweed, and it kind of had some detrimental effects perhaps to monarchs by keeping them around longer during their migration. I don't fully know all of the details, but just something to consider is like the best thing to do would be to stick with the native milkweed if you do grow it. But yeah, I hope that is something that becomes more readily available, and like the program you sent, we're talking about sounds really cool. I'm not familiar with it, but have them send some my way.
Well, and of course, our cup chat participant on the back end, Mary Pearl, has already put the link in the comments to the Monarch Milkweed Market. And so it's it's up in the comments. Y'all check that out for Mary Pearl. Again, thank you, Mary Pearl, for running the comments from behind the scenes. So I have a quick 30-second free commercial, and Haeley, you're going to get to have a free 30-second commercial too. And so this is about things we like, things we have heard of, products you love, things you would like to recommend. And so I'm going to do my free 30-second commercial for your local county agent. And so this sounds kind of odd, and some county agents aren't great with plants, but the Extension Service has done, the Horticulture Department has done a pamphlet called Texas Superstars, and it's got information on specific plants. And it actually has like a butterfly, if it's extra butterfly friendly, water droplets in terms of how much water it needs. It's got a deer, if it's deer resistance. And so it's got lots of wonderful resources, and they're called Texas Superstar plants. I'm gonna put a link in the comments, but this is another great resources on information. If you don't like to go online, I'm also going to put in the comments a link to find your county agent. So there is a county agent extension service in every single county in Texas, and so they can serve as a great resource for you. Some county agents like me maybe aren't the best plant people, but we have people in extension who are plant people, and they will get you connected. So I'm going to put that, go find your local county extension agent, go check them out in their office. And I'm also going to put a link to the Texas Superstar Plant website as a great resource. So Haeley,
the other thing, wait, real quick, piggybacking off of that, the other thing your county agent can help you with is taking a soil test, because if you're going to be planting lots of things, and especially with trees, it can be good to know, or with, what fertilizers you need. A lot of people over fertilize because they don't realize what specific needs are in their soil, and you can get soil test bags at your local county office as well. So
yes, that is true.
And do you want to share what county you are currently broadcasting from? I mean, you mentioned that you're moving or that you moved kind of in past.
I did move. And so I am the new youth and development county extension agent in Gillespie County, located in Fredericksburg. So luckily we have a wonderful hort agent here, and I'm going to have to bring her on Cup Chat one day to talk about plants. But I don't have to answer any more plant questions, which is wonderful because I don't know enough about plants to be super helpful as a county agent. Because we have a horticulture agent here. So I'm excited to be moving to Gillespie County and continue my work with extension and inverting with extension as well. So it's a fabulous, it's a great, fabulous opportunity and a move for me. So that's where I'm joining from now. And Haeley, you get a free 30-second commercial, and it can be about anything you want, a product you've loved, something you've found.
I'll put a plug in for the Native Backyards Etsy shop. So I just started an Etsy shop recently for native plant lovers. So I've got, I'll put it on, some gear here. So I have a Plant Natives hat, because I'm always weeding, and I want to, I'm out at these native plant gardens. I want to have some appropriate attire to help promote native plants. So I designed this hat. That's one of the things in my shop. And I've got some fun coffee mugs and stickers and things to help get the word out about the benefits of native plants. And I've got garden signs here coming soon, but just something fun I'm trying that kind of combines my creative background with my love for natives. And I'm donating 20% of the proceeds to the National Wildlife Federation. So they agreed to partner with me on that. So
that's
cool. My plug.
That's awesome. And the Native Plant Society of Texas is having their fall symposium starting at the beginning of October, and I am not able to go, but there's virtual stuff, so lots of people can go, and I can put that link in here as well. But also, when I clicked yesterday to see what kind of talks they have and what's going on, they have their conference stuff, and their t-shirt this year is so cool. So I may have to get one of those t-shirts, and apparently one of Haeley's hats, and then we'll just be all native plant decked out. So
I'm gonna give me just a second. I'm about to do something crazy. Okay. So y'all ask one more question, and then I'll let you know on my craziness. Okay.
Well, I have something for Haeley. So you mentioned that you have a marketing and a design background, but what, like, okay, Emily knows I struggle with this. If it's up to me and native plants, it's just going to be like,
Oh,
everywhere. Like I don't design. And when Emily and I were first talking about native plants, I think she was afraid that that's what all native plants had to look like, was just this mess. But your picture in your background looks very nice. Like it's very home and gardens and very, it's not just craziness. So how did you, is that just something you have an eye for? You've got this creative side and so you can design a garden, but what if you're like me and you're like, I'm just going to toss them all out there and see what happens?
Yeah, I know. Well, for me, it's still very much kind of wait and see how this turns out, because my garden is still much a baby. It's only about a year old and plants change a lot in those first couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how it fills in. But I do want to try kind of native gardening from a more traditional landscaping perspective. That you can have a wildscape and that's really cool and beautiful. But I also like kind of more distinct plantings. So what I've done, which has worked really well when I extended my my garden toward the back fence there, is that when I took out the grass, I covered it all with layers of cardboard, and that has and then mulch on top, and that has done an awesome job of keeping out the weeds. And then I would cut out holes for the specific plants that I wanted to add, so it does create like a really nice clean look for the time being anyways. And I did that back in June or so, and there's absolutely no weeds or grass or anything coming up. So if you have a bare area that you want it to start as a garden bed, I would highly recommend laying down cardboard. It definitely works better than any type of landscape fabric. And then I do like to use mulch. I think I'm going to try to use some leaf mulch this year instead of traditional mulch, so that's a little better for your yard. But yeah, I think there's some design tricks that I'm still kind of playing around with. They say that for the eye, appealing to the eye is to kind of plant in groups of odd numbers, like groups of 3 in the same plant in one area, and kind of repeating that. But I find it's kind of hard. I don't have a lot of space to include like 3 of the same plants right next to each other, because they do get quite large. So I'm taking like those 3 plants and scattering them throughout my garden. So you'll see it repeated, but like farther apart. That's kind of one of the design things I'm trying right now, just to have some repetition, but not necessarily like a solid grouping of one type of plant followed by another grouping of another. So we will have to wait and see. I'm definitely still learning garden design myself, but I do, I enjoy weeding. So I do try to keep it nice and cleaned up a little bit. So I just have the plants in there that I really want. But yeah, I'll let you know as I learn more, some other tips I have, but
okay.
And I also, one other recommendation would be that sometimes, the natives, that they're not in bloom, if you want to break up that sea of green, like I think it's okay to add a few annual non-native plants like my coleus that I have there, just for pops of color, as long as they're not invasive or anything. I think you don't have to go completely native to have a great native plant garden and to have a pretty garden. So still include those flowers and things that you love as well.
Right, you can make it your own.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I was hating to say this, but that was in my repertoire of questions was, do you prefer a Southern living style garden or a messy garden? The great debate between Maureen and Emily. And I'll tell you, I've seen several people, there's a beautiful native garden, a native front yard down the road, and it is Southern living style. It is gorgeous. I feel like it'd be really creepy for me to knock on their door and tell them that they have accomplish the feat, because I don't think it has to be messy. And they have this Mexican sage bush. And Haeley, I'm going to go ahead and, gosh, this is going to be a long cut chat, but it's okay. Will that grow in a pot, like a big pot, like a big Mexican sage bush?
I'm the Mexican sage. I'm thinking Texas sage. I don't know if I know what Mexican sage is,
So but a bush that grows up. Well, here's a picture in the superstar plant book.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't want to background show. Doesn't like it. There you go.
Pretty.
Yeah, it gives height and it's foliage.
It's kind of one of those things where you just have to experiment. I mean, I think if anything, like if the mature width and height is around 2 to 3 feet, it's probably okay in a pot, a large pot. Yeah, and then I think some of those natives, though, they don't necessarily like potting soil with a lot of the fertilizers and stuff in it. So try to maybe add some more just garden soil and stuff, because they don't like to be too fussy. But I've had a lot of luck growing Greg's mistflower in pots. Are you familiar with that plant? It's a beautiful butterfly nectar plant. It's a magnet for queen butterflies. So that's a great one to start in a pot. And I have some frog fruit, a ground cover actually potted in a pot as well because it kind of trails over the side. Some ornamental grasses like that inland sea oats would be cool. Maybe even Gulf Mooly in a pot, a bigger pot. Yeah. I think that you don't want to get some necessarily giant natives in pots, but some of the smaller growing ones probably would work pretty well for sure.
Oh, Brandy Keller joining us. Thank you so much. She said, yes, it will grow in a pot, but it gets big. Yes. Thank you, Brandy. Because it's just gorgeous. And it's got that height and as a non-plant person, I have appreciated its plant self. So
awesome.
We are running up on time. So Haeley, do you have anything else you'd like to add other than go join her Native Plant Challenge, check out her blog. And today I've gone crazy. It's so great when Maureen and I aren't together and she can't say no. So if you are watching today's Cup Chat or you watch the recording before next week's Cup Chat, comment in the comments your name and the county you are joining us from in Texas, or if you are out of state, tell us what state you're joining us from, and we will put you in a drawing to win one of Haeley's Plant Native mugs off her Etsy shop. So that way you will have a new mug when you watch us on Cup Chat. So comment that you're watching and you're joining us, where you're joining us from, and by next Wednesday we will pick a winner for a Plant Native mug. So Haeley,
awesome.
I am going to need to order one of those.
Thank you. That's great.
Do the deal. And it's going to be there'll be a fun little giveaway to kick off this kind of thing. So Haeley, do you have anything else you want to add other than go and join your Native Backyard?
No, definitely join. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I guess the only other thing is that if you're on Instagram, that's kind of where I post the majority of photos of what I'm experimenting with in my yard. So it's at Native Backyards on Instagram. I post there pretty much daily.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Perfect.
And she's tagged in several of our AgriLife.birding posts. So make sure you follow Native Backyards, and she has some great stuff. And her blogs are great. I love it when you focus on a particular plant and it kind of gives you the ins and outs. So go check out her blog. Maureen, we also need to remind people to register for Learn to Bird. So,
and before we went 15 minutes over our typical length, that was going to be my original 30-second commercial this morning. But yes,
you already lost that because you didn't.
I know. I won't go into it, but except to say that we do have space in both of our Learn to Bird West and our Learn to Bird East. Sign up now, and it'll be fun. And the Brazos Bend State Park, if you follow Texas Parks and Wildlife on Instagram, they did get hit by the hurricane, tropical storm. I don't know what it officially was, but some trees fell down. It'll be cleaned up soon, so no big deal. We'll still be good to go for both locations. So
perfect. So register. We've got the West version, which is in Kerr County, and the East version, which is in Fort Bend County in Richmond, Texas. Technically, it's not East Texas, as we have educated Maureen on, but it is east of I-35, so it does count as east for some people, not normal people. So just Maureen. But
it's not East Texas, but it's in the eastern portion of Texas.
That's true. There you go.
The distinction.
We'll let you have that one. So everyone, thank you to Haeley for joining us. It has been a wonderful Cup Chat, and it's been great to learn a little bit more about native plants. Next week, we will be talking with Dr. John Tomachek. He is our other wildlife specialist, and we are going to be talking about hunting as a conservation tool as it relates to dove. So we'll be talking about dove and then hunting and why we hunt some birds and not others. So join in next week. We can't wait to hear from everybody. Thank you, Haeley, for joining us, and everybody have a great Wednesday.
Bye, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Yep, thank you.